Introduction of 1988 then, promoter-manager Dave Fairbairn set his stall out with the signing of Mark Courtney as the new number one for the Bandits. Mark had been with Newcastle the previous year and in all honesty hadn't really set the heather on fire. He seemed to have lost a bit of his confidence, a bit of his enthusiasm after his tremendous spell at Middlesbrough. Berwick obviously were looking to rekindle that, and rekindle it they did, because Mark had a super season and he was the first Bandit to top the 10-point averages. He finished with an average of 10.07 from 36 league and cup matches. Well, Davy Fairbairn, of course, who had been with the Bandits during their spell at Berwick and Lough and was now fully in charge, of course, in these days, had this knack of bringing the best out of a rider, and he certainly did that in Mark's case. Mark perhaps was one of the most stylish riders in the country. He had been the former British junior champion, of course, but Mark perhaps didn't always have the enthusiasm for the sport that his talent deserved. But in 1988, Berwick got the best of him. What a season he had, 10.07, right at the top of the averages. Charlie McKenna was second in the averages on 8.40. Steve McDermott was third heat leader, but sadly this was to be Steve's last season. His form dipped and he finished up with an average of just over 6.5. Also in the squad were the ever-dependable Rob Grant, again averaging much the same as Steve McDermott, Sean Courtney also over 6, and we had Phil Kinman riding a handful of meetings, and Rob Woffenden, sadly not the force he was the previous year following injury. Rob only rode in 10 matches and eventually left the club to join Edinburgh. He was dropped and asked for a transfer and then eventually moved on to Powder Hall for a spell. Wayne Ross rode a few meetings, Ian Stead too. His average dipped, again he was out injury. Scott Robson had a few meetings at the start of the season and was left out of the side to give him a little more experience in the second halves. And we had Steve Wicks, the young Tynesider from Newcastle Diamonds, coming in to ride 1 or 2 matches. So Berwick that year in 1988 finished 5th in the league, slightly disappointing, but a fair season for the Bandits. And of course in the Cup they moved through to the semi-final, only to lose out to the very strong Wimbledon squad. So that basically was 1988. We haven't of course mentioned Berwick's connections with sponsorship. Drybrews, the brewery, was so much involved with Bandits in the mid-80s, and then the Federation Brewery based at Dunstan, Gateshead, became involved heavily with the Bandits and had their name on their race jackets in the latter part of the 80s, of course. Both breweries and both very valuable sponsorship to Berwick.